What's up, guys? Tomorrow is test day. You can use this as notes, and let's get started. You're just simplifying these, and you have the pattern, the procedure to do it right in front of you. First thing you need to do is make sure the expression has a division line. If it doesn't, you just underline the whole thing, and everything starts on the top. If there's any parentheses, circle those, but it doesn't appear on this one. I have one. So this one, there's no multiplying. So above the line, I don't have any numbers. Well, I do, but those are circled. Those are exponents, okay? I just have the letter X, so I write that down once. So I got 3. The next X is on top of the line, so that's plus. You got to remember that. If you're on top of the line, it's adding. Beneath the line, it's subtracting. 4, and this other X here would have a 1 plus 1. So 7 plus 4 plus 1 is 8, x to the 8th power. So I'm going to circle that. That's the only factor. That's positive, so that means it stays. So it stays on top, and then I don't really clone variables, so x to the 8th is it. Okay, number 2, division line's already there for me. There are no parentheses. I have an X on top and X on bottom. We just put it on top. So I have a 6, and there's no parentheses, so no multiplying here. So I have a 6, and then I'm under the line. So now when I'm under, I minus. I don't add, because it's... Okay, 6 minus 3 is 3. So that's positive, so that is stay. So it stays on top. We don't clone variables. That stays x to the 3rd. Excuse me. Cough still not quite gone. Okay, number 3. Don't have your division line, so underline it. You just have a letter X. You do have parentheses, so you want to circle it. And then there's that 5th power outside. So I've got x, and then I need to multiply 3. I don't write 3 down because I circled it. 3 needs to be multiplied by 5, which is 15. So that is staying, and it can't be cloned, so x to the 15th is the answer. First 3 problems are easy, pretty much a walk in the park. Now it starts getting a little bit more confusing. Okay, division line's already there, and we do have a parentheses, so with this 2 out here. So what do you have on top line? You have a number 6 and a letter X. On bottom of the line, you have a number 3, a letter X, but I just put the number 3 because I already have X up there. So 6 is to the 1, so I need to take anything out of here needs to be multiplied by 2 before you write it down. So 1 times 2 is 2. And I like to do my numbers first. So 3 is to the 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Now for x, we have 2 x's. Okay, here's the first one. 9 times 2 is 18. And here's my other x. Where's that at? Under the line or above the line? It's under the line. It's beneath the line. So it's being divided. So that means I will minus. And then 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, 18 minus 8 is 10. So here are my factors. 6 to the 2nd, x to the 10th, 3 to the 2nd. And they're all going to stay because they're all positive. They're all going to stay on the same side that they're on. Okay, don't move them. So that's on the top, it stays on the top. That's on the top, it stays on the top. That's on the bottom, it stays on the bottom. Okay, I got some things we can clone here. 6 to the 2nd would be cloning 2 6's, and that's 36. Now that needs to be where that needs to replace the 6 to the 2nd, so it goes right here. 3 to the 2nd, that would be 3 times 3, and that's 9. So I replace that with 9, and then times x to the 10th. Now the two products that we got here are on different sides of the line, so we don't need to operate with those. That's just the answer, 36 over 9. Technically, and if I put this, you're supposed to divide, but don't do it, okay? Don't do that, because sometimes they're decimals, and I don't want decimals. Okay, underline. So there's nothing under it. We do have a parentheses here with that batch, but this batch is not in parentheses. Okay, I multiply stuff out of here, but not here. So on top of the line, I have a number 3, a number 2. We should write those first. And I have a letter D. Okay, so 3 would be to the 1, but it's in that circle, so 1 times 3 is 3, so 3 to the 3rd. And the 2 is to the 1. That's not in the circle, so I just go ahead and write the 1 down. I'm not going to multiply the 1 by anything. And then the D, there's 2 of them. So the first D, 2 times 3 is 6. And there's another D here, but it's above the line. So that would be adding 2. And 6 add 2 is 8. Okay, so here are my factors. 3 to the 3rd, 2 to the 1, and D to the 8th. They're all positive, so they will all be staying where they're at. So 3 to the 3rd stays on top, 2 to the 1 stays on top, D to the 8th stays on top. And I can simplify some of these here because 3 to the 3rd can be cloned. So 3 to the 3rd is replaced in the same place with 27. 2 to the 1 is 2, so that would be replaced with 2. And then the D can't really be replaced. So these two factors ended up on top, so you need to do that multiplication operation here. 27 times 2 is 54. So we have 54 times D to the 8th power. Okay, underline the whole expression. Everything's in the numerator. Now I have a couple parentheses here and here. On top of that line, I don't have anything on bottom, but on top I have a number 4 and number 2. And then for letters, I just have X. Okay, so 4. 4 is to the 1, but we need to multiply 1 by 3, which is 3. 2 is to the 1. You need to multiply 1 by 6. That's 6. Then there's 2 X's. So X here, 2 by 3 is 6. And then the other X is on top, so that's addition. 3 times 6 is 18. And 6 plus 18 is 24. So I have 4 to the 3rd, 2 to the 6th, and X to the 24th. Okay, those are all positive, so those are all stay. 4 to the, they stay on top when you go to the next section. You don't really switch anything until you get about halfway through the test. So 4 to the 3rd is 4 times 4 times 4, and that equals 64. So this is replaced with 64. 2 to the 6th, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And that's also 64. So we replace that with 64. And then x to the power of 24. Now again, these two factors have a multiplication sign, so please multiply 64 times 64. 4,096. Number 7, the division line's already there. We have our parentheses. Well, there's a 7th power outside. Pretty easy problem. You just have an x on top and a letter y on bottom. The x would be to the 1 power, but we have to take 1 times 7. That's 7. The y would be to the 1 power, 1 times 7, 7. These would both stay. And there really is, you can't clone variables, so it's just x to the 7th over y to the 7th. You're not really finding answers on these so much as you're just simplifying them. Okay, your division lines here, you have a 2 outside. You You have a number on top, you have a number 5, a letter X, a letter Y. Use time signs between them. On the bottom, you have a number 2, a letter X, but I already have that. A letter Y, I already have that. So 5, 1, so 1 times 2 is 2. Again, don't put the same letter on bottom when you already have it on top. That's going to make the problem more confusing than it needs to be. And the 2 is to the 1, but 1 times 2 is 2. Pretty much everything I see in here gets multiplied by 2. X, you have 3. 3 times 2 is 6. And then here's another X. Is it on top or bottom? It's on bottom. Put a minus sign. Then we take 2 times 2, and that's 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. Okay, now for Y, I've got here 4 times 2 would be 8. My other Y is on bottom, so minus 1 times 2 is 2, and that's 6. These are all positive, so they all stay. Like, that's how the test is set up too. Like, you don't really do any opposites till you get into the second half of it. So everything, 5 seconds on top, it stays on top. X second stays on top. Y 6 stays on top. 2 seconds stays on bottom. So 5 to the second can be cloned. And that's 25. 2 to the second can be cloned. That's 4, so we put a 4 here. Okay, and then X to the second, Y to the 6 stay exactly like they are in the same place. 25 and 4, that's a division operator, so don't do it. All right, now to number 9. You want to underline the expression. That's the division line. No parentheses, so there's no multiplying here. So I have a 3 on top, and its exponent negative 4. So that's the only factor I have. It is negative power, though, so it needs to go to the opposite side of the line. So you move the 3 to the, what's the opposite of the top? Bottom. And then the negative 4 turns into a positive 4. Anytime the top ends up empty, we need to put a 1 up there. You can't have a denominator with no numerator. It doesn't make sense. You can have a numerator with no denominator, but not a denominator with no numerator. So 3 to the 4th, that can be cloned. That would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and that equals 81. 1 over 81. Number 10. Division lines here. You have a negative 2. Top of the line of 3, bottom of the line of 4. So 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Now they're both negative, so they're both going to the opposite side of the line. Now let's look at the 3 first. Opposite of the top is the bottom. The negative 2 switches to a 2. The opposite of the bottom is the top, and the negative 2 switches to a 2. When you're in this box, you should not have any more negatives. Okay, that's what the point of this box. Any negative exponents need to be switched to positive, and that's how you do that. So 4 to the second, 4 times 4, and that's 16. 3 to the second, 3 times 3, and that's 9. So 16 over 9. The division operator does not need to be performed. Number 11, underline. No parentheses, though, so that means this is a no multiplication zone when figuring out the exponents. So I have a 10, a letter B, and a letter C. So 10 would be the 1, but again, this is no multiplying because there was not a big, I didn't circle any parentheses. That'd be a 1, the B would just be a negative 3, and the C would be a 5. Okay, that's positive, so that's staying on where it's at. That's negative, that will be going to the opposite side, and that's positive, that will be staying where it's at. So stay, the ones that stay, write them down. So that's on top, it stays on top. This is on top, it stays on top. This is opposite. So what's the opposite of the top? The bottom. And then the negative 3 switches to a 3. Okay, 10 to the first is just a simple 10. C to the fifth, B to the third. Okay, next one. Make that division line. You have a parentheses with a negative 3 here. So 2 is to the 1 power. Okay, so before I worry about that, you have a number 2, a letter D, a letter E. Okay, getting my chickens before they hatch here. So 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. And the D5 has to be multiplied by negative 3. That's negative 15. And the E, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. So that will be going to the opposite side. That will be going to the opposite side because it's negative. This will be staying. So the one that stays, e to the 6, is on top. It will be staying on top. 2 to the negative third. What's the opposite of the top? Bottom, of course. And the negative 3 turns into a 3. D, what's the opposite of top? Bottom, of course. And the negative 15 switches to 15. Now, the only one of these factors I can really clone is 2 to the third. So that'd be 2 times 2 times 2, and that's 8. So replace that with 8. Now, that's on bottom, so that factor of 8 goes on bottom. E to the 6th and D to the 15th. Okay, 13. Division lines there. Your parentheses is only down here, so this 3, remember, is not part of that circle. So on top I got the number 3. On bottom I got the number 2, the letter X. So 3 is to the 1. That's pretty much it. You don't multiply, it's not in the circle. 2 is to the 1. 1 times negative 5, though, is negative 5. Then X is 1. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. So I circle these 3 factors. That's on top. That's going to stay on top. That's negative. That will be an opposite. That's negative. That will be an opposite. So 3 of the ones on top, and we wrote that it's staying on top. Now leave some room here because you got some things joining it. What's the opposite of the bottom? The top. Then the negative 5 switches to a positive 5th power. What's the opposite of bottom? Top. The negative 5 switches to a positive 5. Okay, here are my 3 new factors. Not really new. 3 to the first is just 3. 2 to the 5th would be 2 cloned 5 times over. That's going to equal 32. There is a button on your calculator that does it. You can use it. Times x to the 5th. And then these 2 factors here are there's a multiplication operator, so we need to actually do that. 3 times 32 is 96 times x to the 5th. Okay, number 14, division lines there. This is probably the worst problem on the whole thing. You have a parentheses, but it's only right here, so I'm going to go ahead and just circle that. On top, you got 2, you got E, you got G. On bottom, you got E and G again. Okay. So 2's to the 1, that's in that circle, so 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. There's 2 E variables. Let's do the top one first. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. And then the other E is on bottom, so I will be subtracting 5. So negative 4 minus 5 would be negative 9. It's like a number line. If you're at negative 4, you go left. So you go negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9. G is to the 5th. And we have another G on bottom, so minus. But we will be minusing a negative. You can put negative 3. I personally like to use parentheses when it's minus negative. And that is going to end up being 8. I'll show you it on my calculator, then I'll just tell you why. If you subtract a negative 3, what you're really doing, you're adding 3 to 5. That's how subtraction of a negative works. So here are my 3 factors. Okay, that's on bottom. That's opposite. That's opposite. That's opposite, and that's stay. So g to the 8th stays where it's at. Okay, 2 to the negative 4th. You will need to switch that 2. The opposite of the top's the bottom. Negative 4 turns into a 4. And the e, opposite of the top's the bottom. That switches to a positive 9. Okay, 2 to the 4th needs to be cloned. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. So I've got g to the 8th. And then on bottom, 16 times e to the 9th. Okay, next one, division line, and then the parentheses with a negative 4 outside. And I have a number 3 and a letter x. So 3's to the 1, 1 times negative 4, negative 4. X, 2 times negative 4, negative 8, and that's all I have. These are both negative, they're both opposite then. What's the opposite of the top? The bottom, of course, and then the negative 4 turns into a positive 4. It's the opposite of the top, bottom, of course, and the negative 8 turns to an 8. Now, anytime the top's empty, we make a 1. So 1, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 81. So replace that with 81 times x to the 8. Okay, last one's a quick one. Underline. No parentheses, so this will not be multiplying. You just have the letter y with its negative 10th power. That is going to be opposite, so move the y into the denominator. And the negative 10 switches to a 10. We cover that. We cannot clone variables, so that'll be 1 over y to the 10th. Okay, and the test is tomorrow. I wish you the best of luck.